And for you, sir. Pierre was staring at his friend in disbelief, before refocusing his attention on Bronwyn. Those previously grim eyes of his were alight with humor. What the hell? He had a French accent. She had been so focused on Bryce that she hadn't noticed that before. I think I'll have that milkshake too. Advertisement. Chapter 3. A few hours after arriving in Camps Bay, Bronwyn was still unsettled by the emotions those long-ago memories on the chopper had stirred up. She was standing in the conservatory. It was the highest point in the staggered house and had always felt like an eagle's eyrie to her. All but one wall, as well as half of the ceiling, was entirely made of glass. She gazed down at the beautiful, blue Atlantic Ocean with its pristine beaches. To her left was a view of the mountain range, the 12 Apostles, named after the majestic craggy peaks that loomed above the gorgeous beaches, while the bustling city of Cape Town lay to the right. The house was exactly as she remembered. Big and beautiful, it was built into the face of the mountain and had panoramic views all around. Bronwyn loved this house, absolutely loved the way it caught the sun and loved the fact that it had always felt like home. It still did. She had felt it welcoming her back from the moment she had stepped off the chopper. Bryce had deserted her immediately after their arrival, taking Kayla to introduce her to her new home. Bronwyn had wandered around listlessly before finding herself back in this room, her favorite. Bryce had always complained that she had turned it into a girly room, with comfortably overstuffed furniture, beautiful throw rugs, and anything else that caught her fancy. She had trawled flea markets and out-of-the-way little shops for anything she felt would suit this room, and the result had been an eclectic blend of old and new, a room for all seasons. He hadn't changed it at all. Everything was still in exactly the same place as it had been when she had left, but the room felt unused, and Bronwyn knew that he hadn't set foot in it over the last 2 years. The room contained so many memories. They had spent hours in it, night and day. It was the room they had done most of their daily living in, simply talking, often making love, and then arguing fiercely on that last day. Her eyes flooded with tears and she covered her face with her hands. Kayla had been conceived in this room too. One night, 3 months or so before their final argument, they had returned home from a party, both of them slightly tipsy. He had looked at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world and had, indeed, told her that over and over again as he had worshipped her body on one of the rugs in front of the window. They had fallen asleep here, right where she was standing, entangled in each other's arms. They'd been so close it had felt like nothing would ever separate them. Bronwyn. She jumped and swung around, so wrapped up in her memories that it took a few seconds for her to realize that he was no longer the same Bryce who had held her so tenderly that night. He had a sleeping Kayla draped against his chest and looked at a bit of a loss. She felt a combination of anger and regret at the sight of him holding her daughter and possessively reached out for her, but Bryce sent her a quelling look. You can barely stand upright. Do you really think you're capable of carrying her without dropping her? Frustrated by the logic of his words and biting back her protestations only out of concern for her daughter's safety, Bronwyn took a step back. Advertisement. It's past her usual nap time, she said, making certain that he was looking at her before she spoke, not wanting a repeat of the incident on the helicopter. Where can we put her? I have a room prepared for her. He turned away and headed for the stairs, which led down to the second-story bedrooms. Bronwyn tensed when they passed the master bedroom and wondered where she would be expected to sleep. He led her to the room that adjoined the master and, with his hands full, he nodded toward the closed door. She obediently opened the door and then gasped when she saw the room. It was a nursery, beautifully decorated in lemon and cream. Toys of every kind were stacked neatly on shelves, and a crib, gorgeously detailed and obviously for a newborn, was positioned close to the large picture window. He carried Kayla to a bigger cot that Bronwyn hadn't immediately noticed. She watched as he tenderly laid his daughter down and covered her with a lightweight downy blanket. He stared at her for the longest time, his hand looking clumsy and huge and infinitely gentle as it stroked the little girl's silky hair. Welcome home, Michaela, he murmured gently before leaning down to place a sweet kiss on her forehead. He raised his head to meet her eyes, and seeing the question in them he shrugged, his face going a little bit red. I had the room done a few months after you left. It was that or go stir crazy. I didn't know if she was a boy or girl, so the colors had to be neutral. She has outgrown just about everything in here, but I couldn't picture how she would look and didn't know how big she would be. His voice broke and he lowered his gaze to the sleeping toddler, his eyes glittering with unshed tears. God, she's so beautiful. Bronwyn didn't know what to say, didn't know how to respond to this obvious desire he'd had to be a part of his child's life. Why hadn't he come for her if he'd wanted the baby? Why hadn't he taken, or returned, any of her calls? At the same time, she couldn't help but feel near hatred toward this clearly conflicted man. He had robbed them of the opportunity to be a real family with his inexplicably cruel actions, and pretty little rooms with expensive toys weren't going to change that fact. Bryce. She tugged on his sleeve to get his attention. She wouldn't be swayed by the obvious vulnerability on his face. I don't know what kind of cruel games you're playing with me. You tossed us away like so much garbage. If you wanted us, you would never have done that. I'm sorry that you missed out on the first year and a half of your daughter's life, but you do know that you have only yourself to blame for that, right? She watched the barb hit home as he flinched at her words. The vulnerability fled from his face to be replaced by fury. You should get some rest. His words were icy. You look exhausted and ill. You are also much too thin. Michaela needs a healthy mother, not some wraith who can barely lift her. Advertisement. Bryce. I don't understand. Why do you hate me so much? What have I done to deserve this ridiculous amount of contempt? It was getting increasingly hard for her to remain upright, but this was important. She was physically weak at the moment, but she was not going to let him walk all over her. How dare you ask me that? He hissed furiously. How dare you, after everything that you've done? I did what you told me to do, she reminded him, her trembling voice as icy as his had been before. You told me to leave, to get out of your sight. You called me a deceitful, lying bitch and told me that you never wanted to see me again. Just stop playing the tragic victim, he warned. The only reason I can stomach having you back in my life is because of Michaela, but push me too far and I'll make damn sure you never set eyes on her again. His threat, her worst fear, sent a shiver down her spine, and her throat closed up, shutting her up as effectively as a punch to the jaw would have. Their eyes clashed for a moment, his stormy and furious, hers bleak with terror. Bryce muttered something while sounding beneath his breath before taking an unexpected step toward her and folding her into his strong arms. His head swooped and he caught her lips in a fiercely tender kiss. Bronwyn gasped in shock, fear, and relief. This felt more like home than the house had. She burrowed closer, wanting the intimacy and affection that she had been missing for so long. Her head tilted back and her mouth opened like a flower beneath his. He groaned, one large hand flat against the small of her back, the other cupping the back of her head. There was an edge of desperation to his kiss, a hunger that had never been present in his lazy, long kisses of the past. His tongue sought and found hers, she felt weak and dizzy with desire. God, she had missed him so much, enough to allow this moment of weakness, even though she knew it wouldn't solve any of their problems. His hands crept up to cup her face, and his thumbs swept over the silky skin of her cheeks. She had her arms wrapped around his hard, warm body, and her hands splayed against his back. She would have crept into his skin if she could. He stiffened suddenly before tossing her aside with a vicious curse and glaring down into her dazed face contemptuously. He shook his head grimly before turning on his heel and striding out without another word, leaving her hurt, humiliated, and furious in his wake. Bronwyn wrapped her arms around her shaking body, still utterly devastated by how much he seemed to despise her. There was a time when he had seemed like a dream come true. He had been an enigma but still the most intriguing man she had ever met. He had kept watching her and making her jumpier than she already was. After slurping down his milkshake with every appearance of complete enjoyment, he had asked her for a meal recommendation, but after the disaster with the drinks, she politely informed him that she highly recommended everything on the menu. He wasn't having that, and, ignoring his impatient friend, he forced her to tell him what her favorite dish on the menu was. She hadn't worked at the restaurant long enough to sample much of the menu and very reluctantly revealed her plebeian tastes by saying that she enjoyed the gourmet brie and bacon burger that they offered. He nodded and ordered said burger. His friend, done with indulging him, ordered something much more in keeping with his sophisticated palate. Bryce went through the same routine with dessert, and Pierre, evidently giving up on him, made his excuses and headed back to whatever glamorous life he led. Bryce remained though, eating his dessert and following it up with coffee. He remained for 4 hours, the last hour of which had been spent sitting solo at the table toying with dessert, ordering cup after cup of coffee and staring at her. He never smiled and never flirted, he simply watched her. Eventually he asked for the bill, and when she brought it, he graced her with the slightest of smiles, his serious eyes warm and a bit confused. "You've never done this before, have you?" he asked gently, as if afraid of hurting her feelings, and she flushed painfully before nodding. "What gave it away?" she joked, feeling like a miserable failure. "Advertisement. I don't know." He shrugged, his smile widening. "Maybe the way you kept recommending the least expensive items on the menu, despite the fact that it would probably decrease your tip." She was appalled for not realizing that herself and made a mental note to recommend the lobster to every client who asked in the future. She frowned, forcing herself to remember to write that down before giving up and drawing a post-it booklet from her apron pocket to jot down in capital letters, "Remember lobsters." He was watching her every reaction in complete fascination, and she looked up to find him staring at her again. "Why do you keep watching me like that?" she asked bluntly, before going even redder, shocked by her own forwardness. His brows lowered as he gave her question some consideration. "I wasn't aware that I was being so obvious," he murmured. He shook himself out of some kind of reverie before reaching for his wallet and extracting a platinum credit card. It was pretty clear that he had no intention of answering her question. He was a generous, but not overly generous, tipper, and when she returned with his credit card he stood up while pocketing his wallet. "Thank you, Bronwyn, is it?" She nodded mutely and he smiled, just the barest tilted the corners of his mouth, again. "The name suits you." She didn't respond to that, not sure if it was a compliment or not. "Advertisement." He turned to go and then hesitated before turning back to face her. "How old are you, Bronwyn?" 24. His expression was inscrutable. "You seem younger." He shrugged. "I'm 29. Okay. Why was he telling her this? He was a strange man, but not in a scary way. He seemed so sophisticated, so unlike anyone else she had ever met. "I'm sorry. It's just that." He seemed to lose track of what he was saying and stood, awkwardly silent for a few seconds. You have." "What?" She had what? She ran her tongue over her teeth, afraid that she may have something stuck in them, and then rubbed her nose in case she had a spot on it. "Such amazing eyes," he concluded in a rush. "Huh, advertisement." She gaped at him uncomprehendingly for a while, and he went dull red before clearing his throat and turning away abruptly. He left before she could blink, before she could draw breath, and before she could call him back. It had been nearly a week since their ill-fated kiss and Bryce hadn't spoken to her much since then. He had given her the master bedroom, and as with the conservatory, the room had an enlivened feel to it. Her wardrobe had been left untouched, but Bryce's clothes were gone, not a tie or even a stray cuff link remained. It was as if he had never shared the same closet space with her. None of her old clothes fit her anymore, they were all a couple of sizes too large. Bronwyn had been dismayed to discover exactly how much weight she had lost over the last couple of years. She had always been slender, so the fact that she had dropped 2 dress sizes must mean that she looked completely emaciated. No wonder Bryce had said that she looked like a wraith. She made a concerted effort to eat more, and as Kayla was spending a lot of time with her father, Bronwyn was getting plenty of rest, so much rest that she was getting quite bored. She was sitting in the conservatory, reading an easy, or so the back blurb claimed, Guide to South African Sign Language, when she heard Kayla's happy chatter approaching. She tucked the book behind a cushion, not wanting Bryce to know she was trying to learn SASL. Something told her that he would not be happy about it. Any references she had made to his deafness were not well received. Kayla entered the room in her inimitable way, all happy laughter and incomprehensible speech, while Bryce followed her in his inimitable way, all scowls and growls when he saw that Bronwyn occupied the conservatory. "Mummy," the little girl squealed when she saw Bronwyn, and she clambered into her mother's lap, smelling of sunshine and sea air. She was wearing cute pink dungarees, one of the very many expensive items of clothing her father had purchased for her. He had taken his daughter out shopping, without Bronwyn, the day after their arrival in Camps Bay. He had sent the housekeeper to ask for Kayla's sizes. Bronwyn had felt rather awkward around Celeste, the housekeeper, who had been with them since their wedding just over 4 years ago, but the elderly woman had welcomed her back with a genuinely warm smile. Bronwyn had written the sizes down and mentally wished him luck with Kayla, who inevitably became a nightmare to handle in any shopping situation. No sooner had they left, than she started worrying about both of them. Bryce might find Kayla more than a handful with his deafness, and Kayla would probably start panicking when she figured out that her mummy was nowhere to be found. Her worrying had come to nothing though, because the two had returned from their shopping spree fast friends and totally inseparable from that point onward. She was a little jealous and resentful at the ease with which Bryce had established a position in her daughter's life. A petty part of her had hoped that Kayla would give him a hard time of it, but her daughter had accepted him without protest and seemed to barely miss Bron at all. Despite her deep-seated feelings of animosity toward Bryce, Bronwyn tried very hard not to begrudge them this time together, if only for Kayla's sake. The little girl needed Bryce in her life. And Bronwyn had to acknowledge that the toddler, with her boundless energy, would have sapped her last reserves. Now she cuddled the affectionate child lovingly, delaying the moment when she would actually have to look at her grim husband. When she managed to summon up the guts to glance at him, she was surprised by an expression of unguarded vulnerability on his face. The expression was quickly shuttered when he noticed that she was staring at him, and the habitual frown took its place. "What did you and Daddy do this morning?" she asked Kayla, keeping her eyes trained on his face so that he would not feel excluded. "We play horsey, Giddoop." The child chortled in remembered glee. She bounced on her mother's lap, and Bronwyn winced as Kayla's shoes dug into her thighs. "Giddoop, mummy, Giddoop, Giddoop." Bryce plucked the child from Bronwyn's lap before she could do any damage. "You're hurting your mummy," he told the child in his carefully modulated voice. He spoke very quietly, and Bronwyn guessed that he had difficulty judging the volume of his voice. He kept it so soft that she strained to hear him sometimes. Not that anything he said was ever directed at her. She guessed that the volume of his voice would grow in proportion to his anger, and he was perpetually angry with her. He stared at her thoughtfully for a little while before totally shocking her and sitting down next to her, putting Kayla down to play with the toys that were scattered all over the floor. "You look much better," he observed, his eyes continuing to run over her face and form. "Not as gaunt, and you are getting some color in your cheeks. How do you feel?" "Better." She nodded. Bored. He shocked her by gracing her with the smallest of smiles. "Advertisement. Yes, you were never one for long periods of inactivity." He nodded. "Have you given any thought to what you want to do once you've recovered?" She stared at him in dismay, having no clue how to answer that question. She hadn't dared think about the future. She had no idea what Bryce wanted from her. Did he expect them to just continue to live together in the same soulless fashion for the next 50 years or so? Because Bronwyn couldn't do that. She absolutely refused to live like this for much longer. She would rather get a divorce. Did he want a divorce? For that matter, were they divorced already? She was certain of only two things. He wanted his daughter, but he did not want Bronwyn. "I don't." "What do you mean?" He frowned. "It wasn't a trick question, Bronwyn," he responded scathingly. "I'm not sure. I suppose I'll find a place to live." He didn't like her response. That much was evident from the way he was glowering at her. "You're not taking Kayla away from me again, Bronwyn. You'll both be staying here. You'd best reconcile yourself to that fact." "Staying here is what?" she asked pointedly. A divorce was looking increasingly appealing right now. She had no idea why she hadn't instigated proceedings herself long ago. She supposed she had clung to the remnants of a fairy tale marriage that had never existed outside of her imagination. "My wife and my daughter," he responded angrily, his voice rising marginally. "I could do without the wife, but I realize that it's a package deal for now, so I am willing to suffer your presence in my life again. How long do you expect us to continue to living like this?" She pressed. She was trying very hard to keep the emotional strain off her face. "Advertisement. Live like what? You have it made, Bronwyn. You'll never want for anything. You have everything you need right here. I'm the one who will be making the sacrifices," shackled to the wife who crippled me and stole my child from me. I'll be the one saddled with a wife whom I have absolutely no respect for. But I want my daughter, and for now this is the only way that I can have her. Oh please, Bryce, she retorted, her face pale with anger and hurt. You're not quite the prize you think you are. You forget that I'll be trapped in a loveless marriage with a man who kicked me out of the house when I told him I was pregnant with his child. A man who hates me for absolutely no reason at all and who makes no secret of the fact that he doesn't respect me. How on earth do you call that having it made? I'd rather we divorce and try to reach an amicable custody agreement. Kayla and I could live close by and the only other option you have here is if I took her from you, Bronwyn. No compromises. You live here with us, or you leave without her. What's it to be? You can't take her from me, she began helplessly, going ice cold as he pulled the rug out from under her again. Damn him, he held all the cards and he knew it. Her bravado was just empty posturing. She didn't have his resources, and for now she'd have to toe his line until she could find a way out of this mess. Can't I? He asked frostily. She floundered beneath his steady gaze, lowering her eyes to where Kayla was happily playing on the floor. You'd better start thinking about what you want, Bronwyn. Stay or leave. But if you stay, I suggest you start finding ways to make your life here more tolerable. But what about, she began before biting her tongue and blushing to her toes. The blush gave her away. Sex, he prompted, and she nodded miserably. Well, I don't know about yours but my sex life is perfectly fine. He shrugged. Naturally, I don't expect you to deprive yourself either. If you're concerned that I'll come creeping into your bed one desperate night, don't worry about it. You are the last woman in the world I want to sleep with. His expression was filled with such distaste that Bronwyn's eyes filled with tears of shame. She knuckled them away, infuriated by the display of weakness. His contempt hurt more than she could possibly have imagined. She glanced down at their daughter. The innocently playing little girl remained oblivious to the tension in the room, and Bronwyn was grateful for that. She refocused her attention on Bryce. You wanted me the other day, she reminded him defiantly, and he laughed. I felt sorry for you, he corrected. Trust me, Bronwyn, the mere thought of touching you makes my skin crawl. She flinched and struggled desperately to keep her tears at bay and her emotions in check, but one single scalding drop escaped to scorch its way down her cheek. His eyes followed the tear's progress. His jaw clenched, and his expression remained emotionless. He looked like a man under enormous strain. She wiped at the moisture on her face, wanting to be as unemotional as he was but failing dismally when another tear escaped. She averted her face, not wanting to see the scorn in his eyes, and pushed herself up as she sought an escape route out of the room. He got up too and stood in front of her, blocking her way to the exit, so she turned away from him and walked to one of the windows, staring blindly out at the magnificent scenery as she fought to control her emotions. He watched her narrow back quiver as she bravely tried to bring herself back under control. Damn her! Her tears had always had the power to unman him, but that was something she did not know, something he had never dared reveal to her for fear that she would use them as a weapon against him. But he could tell that Bronwyn hated having him see her tears. He could see her struggling to be strong, but she was so transparent that every devastating emotion showed clearly on her face. The very fact that she was trying so hard to hide any sign of weakness from him made her tears difficult to ignore. He clenched his fists and forced himself to remain where he was, not to give in to the temptation to go and comfort her. She looked out at the ocean but didn't appear to be admiring the view as she wrapped her slender arms around herself. She seemed so incredibly lonely that it almost physically hurt him not to go to her. But Bryce refused to fall into her trap again. He was calling the shots now. The last time he had been so smitten with her that he had barely been able to see straight. He remembered the first time he'd laid eyes on her, how he had stared at her that day, trying to figure out what he found so fascinating about her. Advertisement. She was tall, about 5'11", but she lacked the grace inherent in a lot of tall women. In fact, on that first day, she had seemed to fall over her feet just about every 5 minutes. She wasn't even pretty. Her features taken separately were attractive enough, a long straight nose, lush mouth, high arching eyebrows, and the most beautiful, thickly lashed, brown eyes that he had ever seen. Yet when put together in her narrow, oval face, those features just didn't seem to match. Still he had been compelled to stare for hours, drowning every time she shifted those huge, velvet brown doe eyes of hers to him. Now he watched her warily, almost wishing that he had never laid eyes on the treacherous bitch. He damned her for looking like a fragile waif with her badly trimmed dark brown hair curling around her face where it had escaped from its sloppy ponytail. He watched as she straightened her back, coming to some sort of resolution, and turned back to face him. She walked toward him until they were separated by less than a meter. "I will stay," she said, her beautiful mouth forming the words concisely. It was hell, this lip-reading business. Every time his gaze fell on her full lips, he found himself remembering what they tasted like. "It looks like I have no other choice. When I have completely recuperated and Kayla is settled in, I want to resume my studies." He nodded. One of his objections to her pregnancy had been that she was in the process of obtaining her undergraduate degree in zoology, her ultimate goal to become a veterinarian. He hadn't been comfortable with the idea of her giving that up and maybe one day resenting both him and the baby for having to sacrifice her dreams. He couldn't recall telling her that at the time though, but he knew that he hadn't been at his most logical after hearing the news that she was pregnant. "If this is to be an open marriage," she continued, "I will start seeing other people too. All I ask is that we be as discreet as possible, for Kayla's sake." She intended to see other men. That thought did not sit too well with him, and he opened his mouth to protest before remembering that it had been his own stupid idea for her not to deprive herself. After all, if he did not want her, why should she not feel free to find someone who would? Some other guy who would hold her and kiss her. Someone who would be free to wipe away her tears and comfort her. Some other man who would love her and take care of her. Someone who would do what Bryce no longer wanted to do. He nodded, hoping that none of the confusion he was feeling was evident in his eyes or on his face. "Sounds fair," he agreed smoothly before dropping his gaze pointedly to her bare ring finger. "But open marriage or not, you have to start wearing your wedding rings again." Bronwyn covered her left hand self-consciously with her right, her own eyes dropping to his strong hands. She had noticed, couldn't help but notice, that he still wore his wedding ring, a broad brushed gold and platinum band with a complex Celtic design that had matched her much smaller band. I don't have them," she confessed, and he made an impatient sound at the back of his throat. "I'm deaf, remember," he prompted sarcastically. "Show me your mouth when you speak." She raised her face and met his gaze unflinchingly. "Advertisement. I don't have them." "You don't have the rings?" he asked in disbelief. "What the hell did you do with them?" "I sold them," she said before fleeing from the room, not wanting to see his reaction to that confession. She would have given anything to hold on to those rings even though they had come to symbolize nothing but lies. Chapter 4. Bronwyn hadn't really expected to see the handsome Mr. Palmer again after that disastrous first time, yet there he was, waiting outside the restaurant the following evening after her shift ended. He had looked moody and uncertain, leaning against the wall outside the staff entrance. When she saw him, she hesitated, not sure why he was there. "Oh, sir, are you waiting for someone? Would you like me to deliver a message?" He was frowning down at her in consternation and seemed a little bewildered. "Have you eaten?" he asked unexpectedly, and her brow wrinkled as she tried to make sense of the bizarre situation. "Not really." She shook her head. "Have dinner with me." The request was so abrupt that it took a few seconds to sink in. "Oh, look, I know how this must seem," he acknowledged gruffly. "But I assure you, I am not in the habit of lurking around outside restaurants and ambushing the female staff with invitations to dinner. I won't harm you in any way. I'm not some creepy pervert or anything. I just. She waited, watching in absolute fascination as he glowered in frustration and ran an agitated hand through his hair while swearing beneath his breath. He dropped his gaze to the ground as he made a visible effort to gather his scattered wits. "Advertisement. God," he was muttering to himself. "I sound like a complete psychopath." Her lips curved into a slight smile at the tone of disgusted self-discovery, but she quickly wiped it from her face when he shifted his eyes back to her. "I had no intention of coming back, but I wanted to see you again." "Why?" "I don't know." He sounded so baffled that the smile crept back into her eyes. "Will you have dinner with me?" "Okay." she said lightly, and his frown deepened. He nodded, pushing himself away from the wall and turning to lead the way before pausing to turn back to her. Do you have absolutely no sense of self-preservation? He growled, and her eyebrows shot up in surprise at his stern tone. Promise me that after tonight you won't agree to have dinner with any more strange men off the street. It's dangerous. There are all manner of crazies out there. Murderers and rapists and God knows what else. You have to be more careful, Bronwyn. Promise me. I promise, she vowed, a little stunned by this unexpected protectiveness from a man she barely knew. He had smiled in relief and she noticed, for the first time, that he had a rather sexy dimple in his right cheek. Good. Then let's eat. Bryce had been in an unpredictable mood since she had confessed, earlier that day, to pawning her wedding and engagement rings. Bronwyn eyed her husband nervously across the dinner table. They tended to have late dinners, so Kayla had been fed and put to bed an hour before. She had toyed with the idea of skipping dinner, but she knew that it would be foolish to miss any meals when she was already so weak, and eating in her room would be the coward's way out. Bryce had insisted, soon after her arrival, that they dine together. He seemed to want everyone to think that this was some kind of happy reconciliation. Not that anyone other than the maids had been around to see them together. Rick, Lisa, and their 13-month-old baby, Rhys, had resumed their family vacation in Nisna and wouldn't be back in Cape Town for another few days. Advertisement. Bronwyn was still amazed by how much things had changed since she left. She wondered where Bryce's friends were. Pierre de Cossy, his business partner at DCP Jewelers Inc. and good friend, used to be a regular visitor in their home. She had liked the Frenchman, although she knew he must have wondered what Bryce was doing with a small-town hick like her. Where is Pierre? She got sick of the silence and decided to take the bull by the horns. When she received no response, she looked up to find Bryce contemplating his wineglass. She sighed sadly, immediately realizing her mistake. She waved to catch his attention and he looked up absently. She repeated her question and he frowned. You want beer? He asked in surprise. Pierre de Cossy. She used the Frenchman's full name, hoping that it would help, and watched as Bryce's lips quirked in amusement, causing his dimple to wink briefly. She was a little shocked at the self-deprecating humor she saw in his eyes. Sorry. B's and P's, you know. Along with V's and F's and T's and D's. It can be a little confusing when there's no context to a comment or conversation. I can get a little lost. She nodded and dared a slight smile. What about Pierre? Well, he hasn't been around at all since my return. I find this rather strange, since he used to come by most evenings before. Her voice petered off, and his eyebrows rose. Before you ran away, he inserted smoothly. Before I was driven away, she corrected, just as smoothly, fed up with being the villain of the piece. His eyebrows raised a notch higher, but he let it slide for once. Pierre spends most evenings at home with his family these days. His family. Pierre hadn't been married when she left. Yes, he has a wife and son. Pierre de Cossy got married. She couldn't quite keep the shock out of her expression. Came as a surprise to me too. He grinned unexpectedly and looked so much like his old self that Bronwyn's mouth went dry with longing. Last year, nearly a full year after you'd left, he quite unexpectedly announced that he was getting married. Admittedly, I had been very much out of commission and not too aware of what was happening in the world around me at the time, but Pierre, who had been a regular and concerned visitor and friend, had never even mentioned meeting a woman he was serious enough about to marry. Bronwyn was so busy absorbing the rare and revealing statement about his convalescence after the accident that his comments about Pierre barely registered. To all intents and purposes, it seemed as if Bryce had retreated from the world after his accident and hadn't ventured back into it. He seemed almost reclusive and hardly ever left the house. In fact, she could not recall him going to the office once since her return. He and Pierre co-owned an exclusive jewelry company that was renowned for its designer accessories that catered to only the wealthiest members in the most rarefied reaches of society. The company had branches in all the major cities in Europe, North America, and Asia, and had just recently gone public on the stock exchange. Alice is fantastic, he was saying. Just what Pierre needs. Sidetracked by that, Bronwyn frowned and tuned back into the conversation. Pierre de Cossy married a woman named Alice. Somehow she had always pictured Pierre, when she had even entertained such an absurd notion, as ending up with a woman exotic in both name and looks. Advertisement. Yes, she's a nice woman, a bit quiet but sharp as the proverbial tack, he recalled fondly, and Bronwyn forced back a tide of envy at the warmth in his voice. How did they meet? She asked, curious. Hospital. Pierre was visiting me and wandered into the wrong ward. Alice had been in an accident too, a really bad one from what I understood. She was unconscious, apparently in a coma, and while every other patient in the room had cards and flowers, Alice had nothing. I don't know, I think Pierre felt a little sorry for her, so he checked in on her every day on his way to visit me and soon learned that she had no family and that she had just moved here from Johannesburg, which meant that she'd had no time to befriend anyone yet. He kept visiting her even after my discharge from the hospital. He brought her flowers and talked to her for months until one day she opened her eyes, smiled, and said, "It's you." Bryce shrugged. Damned if I know what that meant, but Pierre fell hard and fast. They married a couple of months later, after Alice had convalesced enough to walk down the aisle without aid. Oh, what a beautiful story. Bronwyn smiled mistily and Bryce rolled his eyes. How like a woman to find it romantic, he scoffed. You don't think it's romantic? I think that Pierre just liked feeling needed and enjoyed the idea of having someone almost totally dependent on him. It happens. The love may have come later, but initially, in my opinion, that's all it was. Men tend to like it when women arouse our protective instincts, it makes us feel heroic. You sound like you are speaking from experience, she couldn't stop herself from pointing out, and he sneered. Why the hell do you think I kept coming back to you? She had known it was coming, but she had been unable to prevent herself from rushing into those deep, dark waters. You made me feel like an all-conquering hero. You kept staring at me with those doe eyes, and I felt like I could take on the world. It's a heady thing, being elevated to near godlike status like that. I should never have let things go so far. You were a naive little thing and I took everything you offered, but when we had sex and I learned that you were a virgin, I had no option but to do the right thing, didn't I? Especially since we were so stupid and careless that first time. Even though I wasn't keen on the idea of kids, I didn't want any child of mine growing up without my name. Advertisement. What are you trying to say? She asked softly, glad for once that he could not hear the emotion in her voice but unable to hide the tears sparkling in her eyes. That our marriage was based on a lie. No lie. He shrugged. Well, okay, maybe a lie by omission. I never told you why I was proposing. I thought that you loved me. She couldn't bring herself to say the words, and her voice faded into nothing. I know what you thought, but I felt it was best to allow you to continue believing in your happily ever after fairy tale. There was absolutely nothing she could say in response to that, and she stared at him through her misty eyes. He broke eye contact first and raised his glass to his lips, taking a hearty slurp from it. For a second she was almost certain his hand was trembling, but he quickly lowered it and raised his gaze to meet hers once again. There was nothing but disdain in that stare, and she knew that she had imagined the slight trace of vulnerability. Would you like to meet Alice? I'm sure the two of you will get along. Surprised by the sudden change in subject and the unexpected gentleness in his voice, she nodded helplessly. She had lost contact with all of the friends she had made at university. She had tried contacting a few of them since her return. Of course, most of them had moved on to their postgraduate studies, a few had left the city to continue their studies elsewhere, but the ones who had remained had shown no real desire to resume their friendships with her. If she could befriend Pierre's wife, it would go a long way towards staving off the crushing loneliness she was starting to feel in this house. I'd like that. She lowered her eyes to her plate, lifting her knife and fork in an attempt to pretend that nothing was amiss, but the violent trembling in her hands made a liar of her, and she had no choice but to put the utensils back down. She really should not be thus devastated by the knowledge that everything she had initially believed about her marriage was a lie. Like her belief that Bryce had married her because he loved her when he had never loved her. His revelations should hold no surprise, not after the way he'd treated her 2 years ago. Still his words had hurt so much more than they should have. It felt like she had been punched in the stomach, and the pain was unrelenting. I'll invite them to dinner tomorrow night. Pierre and I have business to discuss anyway, he said softly, and she nodded, lowering her head even more, petrified that he would see her tears. She stared blurrily down at her plate but was barely able to see its contents. To her absolute horror, she felt the scalding tears overflowing and watched as they dripped into her plate. With an agonized sound, she hurriedly got to her feet, scrubbing at her face in the process. Excuse. She caught a brief look at his grim face, and unable to stand it anymore, she fled, hearing his muffled curse on her way out. There was a horrible silence, followed by an equally horrible crash as Bryce apparently flung something against a wall. The sound of breaking glass spurred her on and she was up the stairs and into her room like a shot. Thankfully the violent noise had not awoken Kayla, and Bronwyn curled up into a small ball in the center of her bed, leaving the lights off, needing the dark to lick her gaping wounds in private. She had awakened in his arms. Bronwyn smiled in contentment and snuggled closer. His strong arms tightened around her and he kissed the top of her head almost reverently. They had been seeing each other for only a month, but the chemistry between them had been so potent that it had not taken much for Bronwyn to forget all her grandmother's warnings about men and their salacious appetites. In fact, she thought she had been particularly strong in not giving in much sooner. Bryce was a very persuasive kisser, and tonight it hadn't taken much for them to fall into bed together. It had been her first time, and Bryce had been a little shocked at the discovery. He had been excruciatingly gentle and incredibly thorough in making sure that she was completely satisfied. He hadn't left an inch of her body unexplored. Now she was limp, sated, and wondering when they would be able to do it again. She moved her thigh experimentally but still found him disappointingly unprepared for a second round. Advertisement. Give me a second, he groaned. You wore me out, damn it. I need to regain my strength. You just can't keep up with me, can you? She purred teasingly and he growled before flipping her onto her back, pinning her down, and kissing her thoroughly. She felt him stir against her and grinned against his lips. Now that's more like it, she murmured encouragingly, and he grinned, lifting his head to look down at her. The grin faded abruptly and his eyes went silver with desire and something deeper, something so achingly tender it made Bronwyn's heart melt. I can't remember my life before you, he said wonderingly. I can't remember me without you. I never want to let you go. Tell me you'll marry me, please. Bryce, she whispered uncertainly. Bronwyn Kirkland, will you marry me? He asked almost desperately. She was so overwhelmed by his words that she could do nothing but nod. Yes, Bryce, I love you so much, she managed to whisper, her voice thick with tears of joy. Shush, don't cry, he soothed as he slid gently into her welcoming body. No more tears. We're going to be so happy together. She awoke in his arms, feeling both warm and protected. Bronwyn felt a dizzying sense of déjà vu as she struggled to find her bearings. She couldn't believe that she had fallen asleep after the emotional turmoil at dinner. She had been so certain that her tumultuous thoughts would keep her awake. She had her face pressed to his chest and she could feel his heart beating steadily beneath her cheek. Advertisement. Bryce. She whispered tentatively, not sure where her dreams ended and real life began. Maybe she was just now waking up after their first time together and everything in between had been nothing but a vivid dream. He didn't stir and she moved restlessly against him, feeling his arms tighten possessively around her. His large hand started stroking her back leisurely and she burrowed closer, reveling in the comfort and not quite ready to relinquish it yet. She still wasn't certain if this was a dream or real. But she didn't care anymore, she was in Bryce's arms exactly where she belonged. His warm hands crept beneath the thin cotton blouse she was wearing until his dry palms found the soft, naked skin of her slender back. She sucked in a breath at the electrifying contact and arched toward him with a slight moan. It felt like forever since he had touched her last. Her hands crept up over his broad chest, feeling the heat of his skin through the thin material of his t-shirt. She looked up, trying to see his face in the dark, but she could see nothing except the gleam of his eyes. Bryce, she murmured dreamily, half asleep and still lost in the memory of her dream. She lifted a hand to his face. She loved the feel of his stubbled jaw beneath her hand. He made a slight sound and abruptly lowered his head to capture her soft, surprised lips with his hard and demanding mouth. The kiss was a lot more ruthless than she had anticipated. She had been expecting gentleness, not this almost violent caress. Still it was Bryce, her beloved Bryce, and she would deny him nothing. His kiss softened and became almost desperate as he leaned into her. And over her, until she was flat on her back and he was cradled between her spread thighs. He loomed above her, not once relinquishing contact with her soft mouth, and she moaned as she wrapped her arms tightly around his neck, not wanting to let him go ever again. He eventually came up for air and fumbled with the buttons of her blouse, while she tugged at his t-shirt and dragged it over his head before he had managed even half of the buttons. Losing patience, he ripped the fragile garment apart, sending mother-of-pearl buttons flying everywhere. Bronwyn giggled and Bryce stilled abruptly. "I've missed your laughter." The sound of his sexy, smoky voice startled her into complete wakefulness. "I always loved your laugh." He sounded so wistful that Bronwyn wished she could see his face. She raised a curious hand to his mouth but he leaned back, denying her the contact. "Bryce, what?" she started to say, but he cursed softly before leaning to the side and switching on the bedside lamp. The unwelcome present immediately forced its way into the bedroom as Bronwyn found herself staring up into the rough-hewn features of an older, harsher Bryce than the one she'd just dreamed about. This was not the man she had fallen in love with. This man was battle-scarred and hated her more than she had ever believed possible. "I want to see you," he muttered harshly. "When you speak, I want to know what you are saying. When you laugh, I want to see your eyes light up. And when I make you come," his voice lowered sexily, "I want to see you scream even if I can't hear it." "I don't think," she began uncertainly, preferring to make love with him in the dark, where she could fool herself into believing that he was the old Bryce, the one who had pretended to love her, even if he now claimed that he never had. A shaft of agony pierced through her as she recalled his confession at dinner, and she tried to move away from him but he would not permit it. He pinned her down, his eyes boring into hers, so that she was unable to hide her pain from him. His brows lowered into an intimidating frown, and she flinched, wondering what scathing remark he had in store for her this time. "Advertisement. You were crying at dinner," he said almost accusingly. "What do you expect?" she asked bitterly. "You can't keep cutting me without spilling my blood, Bryce. Such drama." He grinned caustically. "Don't cry again, it irritates me." The demand was so ridiculously petulant that she gaped at him in astonishment. He took advantage of her open mouth and swooped in for another hungry kiss. "I want you," he groaned, grinding against her so that she would have no trouble mistaking his meaning. "I want to make love with you." He raised his head to look down at her, trying to gauge her receptiveness. "Only it's not making love, is it?" she asked bitterly. "Without love it's nothing more than a cheap screw." He made a dismayed little sound and covered her mouth with his own before she could say anything more. Bronwyn soon forgot everything as his mouth wove a seductive spell over her. His wicked fingers seemed to be everywhere at the same time, and his mouth soon followed. He paused when he reached her braless breasts and he stared at them for a long moment. Bronwyn squirmed uncomfortably as she fought the desire to fold her arms over her petite assets. She had always been self-conscious about her small breasts, but Bryce had always loved them. Now he was staring at them almost analytically, and she found herself flushing to the roots of her hair. "They haven't changed," he murmured, almost reluctantly raising his eyes to meet hers. "I expected them to be different, you know, after Michaela. I couldn't breastfeed her." She shrugged. "I was ill for a while after the birth, and by the time I was well enough, she was on the bottle and my milk had dried up." His eyes darkened. "Ill." Not wanting to discuss that right now, Bronwyn distracted him the only way she knew how. She arched her back until her nipples brushed his naked chest. She hissed as they made contact with the hot, silky flesh that was lightly dusted with soft, golden hair. He groaned at the contact and lowered his eyes back down to her breasts. They were barely a handful, creamy little mounds with raspberry red tips. His breath caught on a sob of pure desire, and he bent down and did what she was aching for him to do. He took one of the distended tips into his mouth. She squealed, nearly coming off the bed at the electric jolt that swept through her body, and he raised his head to grin at her. "Advertisement. They're still as sensitive as I am." He was cut off when she lifted impatient hands and pulled his head back down, forcing him to focus on the task at hand. He laughed wickedly and proceeded to give her what she wanted with as much enthusiasm as she was taking it. Soon they were both completely naked, and Bryce paused above her, his arms planted on either side of her head as he held himself aloft. He stared down into her face with an intensity that unnerved her, before reaching over to the nightstand and fumbling open a drawer to yank out a condom. For a painful moment, Bronwyn wondered why he had a handy stash of condoms in the drawer, before he spoke again, immediately distracting her. Still such innocence in those eyes, such trust, they still stare at me with such adoration, he muttered, half to himself as he dragged on the condom. How can your eyes tell such lies? Shocked by the near hatred in his voice, Bronwyn gasped in horror as she recognized that this act of sex, if completed, would be another cruel means of hurting her, just another weapon to use against her. Before she had a chance to formulate any kind of protest, he entered her with a gentleness that belied his harsh words and took what she had so heedlessly and freely offered just moments ago. She was so well primed for it that despite everything, she moaned and her slender thighs clenched around his hips. Her long legs wrapped around his waist as she welcomed him back into her body. He had gone completely still, and she opened her eyes to see him staring down at her triumphantly. Her eyes filled with tears and he glared down at her. "Don't you dare," he warned darkly. "Don't cry." She couldn't help it, tears overflowed even as she shoved herself up against him. He groaned and met her lunge with one of his own. "Don't cry." Bronwyn found herself whimpering desperately in time with his thrusts, even while her tears continued to flow and her heart continued to break. "Please don't, he continued to almost beg, kissing the tears away. His tenderness acted as a balm to her ravaged soul and worked to end the weeping as nothing else could have. "My beautiful Bronwyn." Her body arched as the sensations heightened and he reached down between their bodies to find her sensitive little clitoris. His long, clever thumb rubbed across the excited nubbin and that, combined with his thickness inside of her, sent her hurtling over the edge of reason. Her breath hitched in her chest and her head tilted back while her entire body convulsed and clenched around him. She screamed as the powerful orgasm swept through her, and Bryce half laughed incredulously. He couldn't take his eyes off her. So absorbed was he in her climax that his own took him completely by surprise. He shouted hoarsely as his entire body bucked and he jerked once, twice before with another shout, her name. He poured himself into her. With a broken sob, his eyes closed as his brain shut down and his body went limp. He stirred himself only to remove the condom before flopping down beside her again, dropping a heavy arm over her waist. "I miss your breathless little sounds." He broke the silence 5 minutes later, after their heartbeats and breathing had returned to normal, just as Bronwyn was starting to feel awkward and wondering now what. Those half-formed gasping little words, God, they used to turn me on more than you can imagine. She lifted her head from his chest to stare at him. "Advertisement. You never mentioned that before," she pointed out, and he smiled. "Because I knew that if I'd said anything you would immediately have felt self-conscious about it." His reminiscent smile became a wicked grin. "And I didn't want you tensing up at crucial moments. Yet you feel comfortable enough telling me about it now?" she asked, curious, and he snorted. "I can't hear them anymore," he pointed out, and she tensed. "So getting self-conscious about any sounds you produce while we are making love is a little pointless. Are you going to tell me what happened to you, Bryce?" she asked faintly, and it was his turn to tense up. "Or are you never going to afford me the opportunity to defend myself?" "You were there," he reminded grimly, and she frowned irritably. "Why do you keep saying that? What do you mean I was there?" she asked angrily. "Where the hell was I?" "There when I had my goddamned accident," he snapped before launching himself out of bed and stalking around the bedroom angrily, looking for his clothing. She leaped out as well and walked around his back until she was facing him again. She was stark naked, but she no longer cared about anything except getting to the bottom of the strange accusation. "I was not there when you had your accident," she retorted indignantly. "Advertisement. I saw you," he forced the words out between clenched teeth. "What?" She was completely baffled now. "Saw me where? Bryce, I don't even know when you had your accident. Please just tell me what happened." "It burns me to have to tell you something that you already know, Bronwyn," he gritted. "You are playing me for a fool and I don't like it." He moved to step around her but she put her hands up against his broad chest to stop him. He felt about as immovable as a block of granite. Please, just. Her eyes begged him when words failed her. I went after you that night, when you raced out of here like a bat out of hell, he said so quietly that his lips barely moved. As you knew that I would. You were going so fast that I was terrified you would get into an accident. His lips twisted at that bit of irony. It took me a few minutes to get my car out, so by the time I headed out in the direction you had gone, you'd disappeared. I was frantic and wasn't paying attention to anything around me. I was so focused on trying to spot your car that I didn't see the couple crossing the road until it was almost too late. I swerved to avoid them and the car rolled. I was drifting in and out of consciousness, trapped in the car, when I saw you standing there amongst the crowd, staring at me with nothing but ice-cold contempt on your face, you heartless bitch. He hissed viciously. You turned around and walked away without so much as a backward glance. I wasn't even surprised when I woke up 3 days later in intensive care to be informed that you hadn't even bothered to visit or call. I couldn't have cared less if I never saw you again but for the fact that you were having my baby. You were having my baby and you had simply disappeared off the face of the earth. Is it any wonder I hate you? Not only is my accident your fault, but you walked away from me when I was at my most vulnerable, when I needed you most, and you took my daughter along with you. Bronwyn's face was ashen with shock at his story. She ached to think of the agony he must have gone through in that hospital, wondering about his baby, but she was also filled to the brim with fury and offense that he dared to think she could do something so awful as walk away from him while he lay injured and bleeding. Not to mention his ridiculous statement that the accident had been her fault when he had caused the entire sorry situation. I concede, she began quietly, with barely repressed sarcasm, that maybe the accident was my fault because for some crazy reason I saw fit to flee after you drove me out of the house right when I needed you most. But I absolutely refuse to listen to this nonsense about me standing impassively by the side of the road while you lay bleeding and trapped in a car. Or, worse, walking away while you were still in the car. I didn't know that you'd been in an accident until the day you walked into my hospital room. I would never have stood there watching you suffer, and if I had known you were in the hospital, no force in heaven or hell would have kept me away from your bedside, because, even though you had treated me like something to be scraped off the bottom of your boot, I still loved you so damned much. He started to say something but she held up her hand. No, you've had your turn, it's only fair I get a chance to defend myself against this insult. I did not think you would immediately come chasing after me. You were so irrationally angry that I knew you needed time to calm down. I headed straight for the beach house in Nisna. I stopped only for brief bathroom breaks and drove the distance in just under 5.5 hours. I was confident that once you had time to calm down and think, you would change your mind about the baby.